The NBA draft is less than 10 days away, and on today's show, we're going to look at the latest Miami Heat draft rumors via a ESPN mock draft. Remember, that draft starts on June 25th. We're going to talk about everything on today's show. Let's get right into it. The draft is approaching very rapidly, and if you are just tuning in and you're a late person to the party when it comes to the Heat draft talk, Miami does have the 20th overall pick in the first round, courtesy of the Warriors. Now, I will say this, I don't even know if they will end up keeping that pick, or they could be making a selection for a different team on a handshake deal. It seems like the Heat are very much open to trading that pick, and it's might what they prefer as well. At least to the point of filming this on Thursday afternoon, we have not seen the Heat have a reported workout or meeting with any prospects projected to go in that range. Every meeting/workout we have heard about has been second round and UDFA guys, but you do have to be prepared if you do ultimately keep that pick and don't or can't move it. So I would expect some names to start coming out over the last week and a half here before the draft of the Heat working them out. I guess I don't want to give away too much on who they could be eyeing, but you do have to do your due diligence on some of these prospects. But make sure you do share this video because I want to get this video out to more people that we can. Why? Because every Heat fan should have the most information possible heading into the draft, and we do the best at that with trades, with draft, free agency. So help spread the word of our channel and this video specifically. Let's get 15 shares on today's show. All right, this ESPN mock draft is an interesting one. You see so many different mock drafts in the final 2 weeks of this process, but this specific ESPN mock had two selections for each team. One of them that filled the biggest need, and when going through the biggest need, no player was repeated twice. But then there was also a player that fills the best value for that specific team. Now, that is a player that could be repeated twice. So some teams, the best player that fills the need and value is the same. Some teams, it's different. Sometimes the team or the player that fills the best value was taken 5 picks in front of that team in this mock draft. So it's an interesting little hypothetical and thought experiment here. But the Heat did have 2 different prospects, so let's talk about them. The pick that filled the biggest need, Jonathan Givony made this selection for Miami. Jeremy Woo did the best value. He had the Heat going with Ben Saraf, the combo guard from Germany, Ratiopharm Ulm. He is from Israel, but he played in the German league. Now, here's what Givony said on Ben Saraf. Says the Heat don't have a great deal of shot creation or playmaking they can point to on their current roster, making the point guard position a clear priority this offseason. Saraf has excellent size, pace, and creativity at 6'6", playing a big role for Ratiopharm Ulm in Germany, with an especially impressive playoff campaign to date. His strong instincts on both ends of the floor, combined with his youth, give him intriguing upside he can tap into long term. And we'll talk about the guards on my list around that pick range at the end of today's show, so stay tuned for that. But I would not be that upset if the Heat ultimately took Ben Saraf at 20. There was a report about a month ago from Greg Sylvander that the Heat have done extensive homework on the lefty guard from Israel. And when you watch his film and watch his tape, you understand why there is upside around him long term. There is a little bit lack of athleticism, but he is very crafty. He can get to his spot, and he can run the pick and roll at a very efficient level. And this year, for Ratiopharm Ulm, he played 24.4 minutes per game, averaged 12 a night. But you heard Givony mention how well he has been playing in terms of his playoffs for Ratiopharm Ulm. He has been excellent for them. They're actually in the finals of that playoff for that league. Him and Noah Senge, 2 projected first-round picks, may not even get to work out for NBA teams if that series goes and is extended for a long time. Actually, if it went to the full 5 games, I was reading today that they would not even be able to attend the draft because Game 5 of that final series in their league would be on draft night, the 25th. So it could create some chaos because teams won't be able to get them in their own building for personal workouts, meet the prospects, which could ultimately lead to Saraf and Asenge sliding. That is something that has not been talked about that much in draft circles to this point. More on Saraf coming up here in a second, but I got to know the people's thoughts. Will the Heat even keep their pick in this draft, or will they trade it? Type K if you think they keep, type T if you think they trade. Let me know your thoughts down below. Now, Saraf is very impressive because for a guard that has the ball in his hands a lot, but can play a little off ball as well, he does have very good positional size. It's one of his advantage, one of his positives with him as a prospect. He's 6'5", 6'6" with shoes on, 200 pounds, with a solid wingspan of 6'7.5". Nothing too out of the ordinary, but that length is something that you can project playing well long term next to Tyler Hero. And we've talked about having a lengthy guard that can do it on both ends next to Tyler is something that Heat fans and the Heat front office should probably try to get, at least in terms of trade, free agency, or in the draft. So let's do a little brief Saraf scouting report here. Start with the goods. He is an excellent pick and roll ball handler. He knows exactly where to get to in terms of his spots on the floor. When the big Gortat screens, he's able to slither his way back to his left hand to get back to a layup. He is an excellent skip passer as well. If you find the short corner guy helping on the roll, he will quickly make the decisive pass. He is great in that role. He is a good catch and shoot shooter as well, ranked in the 75th percentile off catch and shoot opportunities this year overseas. 75.3% free throw shooter as well, so he's got solid touch. He's also very crafty, can get to his spots. Now, he's not a perfect spot or prospect. We always like to talk about the bads as well. He does not have a typical NBA guard shot diet. He likes to live in the mid-range a lot. He doesn't shoot a lot of threes, 23.3% rate from beyond the arc this past season. And we mentioned the free throw shooting be a positive. He doesn't really get to the line that often either, 33.3% rate. So he's a guard that doesn't shoot a lot of threes, but he's a guard that also doesn't get to the line that often. That can be a little bit dicey at the next level. He's also very limited athletically, and that kind of gets parlayed into his inability to defend at a high level. I think he can, but he's not going to be someone I trust defensively early, and it's very rare that you find rookies come in the league and be impact defenders early on, but I do get concerned a little bit about his fit with Hero defensively long term. The offensive fit, I think, would be very fun, but defense is a little bit of a concern here. Now, to wrap up the conversation on Saraf, here is what I have done in terms of my grade. I have him graded out as a late first-round pick, so you can make the argument that 20 is a fine spot for him. I'd probably argue it's better to draft him between 25 to 28 in that range, but if you like him as a prospect, take him at 20. That's kind of how I view it. And I think I might be getting got by his lefty shooting stroke, but he's got such a high arcing release, not someone that relies on athleticism, crafty, just knows how to get to his spots. I kind of see Goran Dragic in him. I'll say Goran Dragic light because I don't think he would have the career that Goran had because, remember, he was an all-star, someone averaging 18, 20 points in this league. I don't think Saraf would get to that mark, but the way he plays is a very similar style to Goran Dragic, which is why I give him that kind of comp. All right, we're going to get to the other prospect here in a second, but make sure you do subscribe to the channel as we get closer to the draft. We'll have everything you need on the trade cycle as well as being live on draft night. Subscribe today. Join the channel for daily content. I mentioned earlier the ESPN mock had the best value for the Heat at pick number 20. Jeremy Woo made this decision, and he had Jase Richardson, the freshman guard from Michigan State, being that best value player for Miami at 20. Woo on Richardson, saying that his strong analytical profile mixed with his subpar positional size has made him a divisive player for NBA front offices, but in this part of the draft, he becomes an interesting value bet with strong role player qualities as a good shooter, decision maker, and willing defender who can help bolster almost any backcourt. And if you have been with the channel throughout this draft cycle, you would have known that about 3 weeks to a month ago, when Jase Richardson was linked to the Miami Heat, I was very skeptical of his fit. Now, with him as a prospect and him as a player that could be on this Heat roster come in the fall, I think Jase Richardson has really grown on me. It's not someone I'm slamming my fist on the table for the Heat to ultimately take, but I was very shaky of him being a pick for Miami a month ago. I would now not be that upset as we work through that there. He has been really good in this pre-draft process. He's measured out a little bit lower than expected, but his intangibles are something that you really like to see. He was productive for Michigan State last season as a true freshman in a Tom Izzo scheme. And it's hard to do for Izzo. You see him play a lot of 4-year guys, 3-year guys, someone in the program a lot. Well, as a true freshman, he was a difference maker who ultimately started coming off the bench, but then ended up starting down the stretch of that season and was averaging about 16 points per game for them since the last like 5 or 6 weeks of their season. Excellent 3-point shooter. Richardson is someone that has definitely grown on me. Now, the issue with Jase Richardson, in my opinion, is that he is a little bit undersized. At the NBA Combine, came at 6'1.5" barefoot, so with shoes on, at best, probably 6'2", and that is at best. So undersized. Now he's able to make up for it a little bit here with a very solid wingspan, a +5.5 wingspan at 6'6" in total. So even though he's a little bit shorter, he could still be disruptive on the defensive end with that long wingspan, contesting players as well. But the offensive fit is kind of where I question a little bit. But let's get into a little bit of a Jase Richardson scouting report here. The number one thing that he has that is very impressive is his feel for the game. He just always seems to be in the right spot. He also relocates unbelievably well. If he dumps it inside to a big man on the low block, he knows where to drift to, knows when to stick, to just be able to find and be in the right spot to hit a 3-point shot off the catch. He's an excellent off-ball player, cuts at a very high rate, and he projects to have some on-ball upside. Ready for these statistics? Let me rattle them off for you from my notes. Shot 41.2% from three, 7.3 attempts per 100 possessions, 93rd percentile on spot-up scoring as a freshman, 95th percentile on catch and shoot points per possession added at 1.34. And even though he did not have a lot of on-ball usage at Michigan State, when he was used as the ball screen handler running the pick and roll, he added 1.1 points per possession, which ranked in the 91st percentile. So although he had a very low usage rate in terms of on-ball, there is some upside long-term if he's given more of a role there, and he did that a lot as a high school player as well. Now, the couple cons with Jase Richardson, he is very undersized, as we mentioned, and the questions of him being able to be a self-creator are there as well. His handle isn't something that we're writing home about in terms of an ability to break down a defender, get 2 feet in the paint, to collapse the defense, to kick it out or drop it off to a big man like most elite point guards are able to do. So you are concerned slightly about his size on the defensive end of the floor as well as on the offensive side, and the self-creation are the two things that give me the most cause for concern. So the Jase Richardson comparison, I have him graded out as a mid to late first-round pick. So I do actually have him a little bit higher on my board than Ben Saraf. I kind of anticipate him going anywhere between late lottery to where Miami is in that 21, pick 20, pick 22 range as well. And my comp for him is Scottie Pippen Jr. I know that might not be thought of as a high player and a high ceiling, but if you watch Scottie Pippen Jr. for Memphis this past season, he was phenomenal after getting inserted in the starting lineup. He could play on ball when Ja was on the bench. He could play off ball when Ja was on the floor, and I project that to be something Jase could do with Tyler Hero. When Hero's on the floor, he probably dominates most of the possessions. When Hero's on the bench, Jase could be that lead ball handler. So I feel like those two, in terms of Scottie Pippen and Jr. and Jase Richardson, have a very similar style. They also have a very similar size profile, both undersized guards. So out of the two prospects that we broke down on today's show, Ben Saraf and Jase Richardson, if you had to choose one to be the selection for Miami at the 20th overall spot, who would it be? Type BS for Ben Saraf, type JR for Jase Richardson. I would definitely prefer Jase. I really do. I think the upside actually might be higher for Ben Saraf in terms of if he reached his max potential, but Jase's floor as an off-ball spacer, defender, and shooter is just so good to where I think he could be somewhat of an impact player right away for Miami, although he is a true freshman, because I don't think Ben Saraf would be guaranteed to be a productive role player for Miami right away, but Jase would be able to do that. So it's really a pick your poison. But if you're looking to draft a guard around that 20th pick, here is my Rolly board around these kind of area. Now, I am not including a Jeremiah Fears. I am not going to include a like Kasparas Yakachonis. I don't think those players would even be close to there. I even tossed and turned of including Agor Demen from BYU. I don't think he has a world of chance to make it to 20, but I've seen some mock drafts have him go at pick 17, 18, or 19. And if that's where some mocks have him going, then I guess there is a chance he gets to 20. If the Heat passed on Agor Demen at 20, I would be rioting in the streets. It would be a disaster outside of the Kaseya Center because of how mad I would be. But Nolan Traore out of France has become my second guard, 6'3" with a 6'8" wingspan, wicked first step, fastest player in this draft, gets his feet in the paint at all times. And then you see the two players we talked about right after, Jase and Saraf, be my 3 or 4. I know a lot of people are going to be surprised with this one, but as I just continue to do more work on these guards in the draft, Tyrese Proctor continues to stand out for me, man. 6'4" with a really good wingspan, played on ball early in his career at Duke, then moved to off ball this past year. He reminded me of like Aaron Nesmith Light, which you can argue is not a guard, but he was a 1 or 2 at Duke, so maybe he would be a 2 or 3 in the NBA. I am not sure. But Proctor, I have a late first round grade on him. I have really grown to like Proctor as a prospect. Do I think Miami should or would take him at 20? No, but I do want you to know that is someone I have my eyes on in the second round if the Heat acquired a pick or bought a second round pick on draft night. Either way, it should be an interesting 2 weeks because either the Heat are going to have prospects come in and we're going to have an idea of where they're looking with the 20th pick, or they trade that draft pick in a deal for a Kevin Durant or another star around the NBA. Either way, make sure you are subscribed because we will have you covered with everything around this Heat basketball team, whether it's the offseason, whether it's the regular season. Join the channel today because it is going to be a very, very, very fun offseason.